Today, I just wanted to air my thoughts on wondering why we're responsible for companies' waste. Gone is the illusion of the people being the first concern of the governments, or corporate sentiments of the customer is always right, or the buyer is king. It seems familiarity breeds contempt. Now, like every other aspect of our lives, we are led a merry dance just to deal with what we pay for, whether it be the use of the item itself, the disposal of the packaging, the disposal of the product at the end of its life, or indeed just getting the product home. Companies seem to be ignored where responsibility is concerned, but consumers seem to be punished when the actual problem seems to be caused at corporate level. As an example, let's take a look at packaging and the plastic bag debacle. Although talked about in the media with siege stories for over a year, plastic bags being charged for while shopping has recently come into effect here in Australia and is proving to be a bit of a headache. I'm aware plastic bags have been charged for in places like the UK for a while now, and the fact this is being rolled out across the Western world can say much about the collusion of governments. But I'd like to spend a few moments here using critical thinking to understand a little of the real agenda and the fact we are all being penalised for corporate waste. Before plastic bags there were paper bags, and now we're encouraged to use cloth bags because of their reusability. We are told that plastic bags are bad for the environment and end up in the landfill or block drains or end up in the ocean. The first question I would be asking here is how are they ending up in the infrastructure or the ocean? I'd wager it's probably runoff or wind blowing them off the landfill site. Otherwise, if it was the general public casting them into the air like they just didn't care, you'd see hundreds of plastic bags floating around your main street every day. So who's to blame here? The company that gave them to you? The company that deals with the uncovered landfill? Or the consumer? I'd wager many consumers actually reuse their bags at least once, like using them as rubbish containers. Indeed, there were many bins made specifically to hold the shape of bag. I know, I've got one. They wouldn't have made it if there wasn't demand for it. So what's really going on here? Coles, Safeway and IGA, three of the major food retailers here in Australia, recently decided to do away with so-called one-time use plastic bags. Aldi, who's the other major food retailer, never had them to my knowledge and always charged for thick reusable plastic bags. Coles and Safeway were lambasted because people found out they were saving hundreds of thousands of dollars by not giving them away. Savings, you bet, that weren't passed on back to the consumer, and in fact were making a profit as people now had to buy bin bags from them as well. Those that forgot to bring bags were charged for cloth or reusable plastic ones, and then a warning came out about using reusable plastic ones as they could harbour germs if they weren't washed out thoroughly. Then Safeway reduced your bill by 1 cent for every bag you brought with you, and there, my friends, I threw up my hands and decided I didn't care about this nonsense anymore. Recently, there were a few backflips with Coles saying they were doing reusable ones free for an indefinite period, and etc. It really has been an example of how not to do something. Now, I'm disappointed for several reasons. By the fact I still keep forgetting to take my bags into the shops or even return them to the car once everything has been put away. The fact that should I call in to a food retailer because I was in the shop next door and decided to pick up a few things, I now need to pay for a way to get it home as I don't walk around every day with bags just in case. The fact that an inordinate number of plastic packaging is used around or inside many items you buy, which I have to deal with and dispose of. The fact that the fresh vegetable aisle is still using plastic bags and that's okay. The fact that Coles and Safeway change their prices so often that I'm sure a small rainforest dies every time they release their weekly specials because of the price tickets being continuously replaced, never mind the massive amounts of catalogues they produce every week. And the fact I bought a single LED light bulb to use less electricity, and it came with a thin plastic sleeve and an external plastic case and a plastic internal protective layer for one light bulb. So, to make a short story long, the consumer is inconvenienced and forced to pay more and do more work while the corporations get away scot-free and waste more plastic than the bags would ever make. And they are now making more profits from the sale of plastic and reusable bags. Cue slow clap here. On top of this, we recycle all their packaging waste and pay taxes to have it taken away come bin night, all free to the corporation. And don't get me started about the recycling not even being done in Australia, most if not all of the time. So anyway, here's a photo of my plastic waste for a week, just foodstuffs. On the right is a ball of the last plastic bags. I got those while they were still being given away, so that's for a 2-week shop. On the left is just 1 week of normal food item packaging for one person. In the black plastic bag is loose plastic packaging that I'll add to the rest that you see. And this was a week when my son had gone on a school trip, so he wasn't at home eating everything from snack bars and beyond, which have individually wrapped oat bars and cheese and crackers, etc. But I'm straying off the point here. Back to the bags. So if no plastic bags, why not paper bags? Ironically enough, I found an article by Wired, which I'll link below, that states a research paper done in 2007 by an Australian state government agency, and they found that although paper bags broke down, they had a larger carbon footprint than the plastic counterparts. In other words, they cost more for storage and transport. Okay, well, obviously the cloth bag's better then. Oh, not so fast. That same study found cotton was rather expensive in costs associated with insecticides, pesticides, and the massive amounts of water to make it grow, let alone transport and storage. So even though it was reusable, it was still a huge impact on the environment, and worse than plastic. No, apparently the best solution was the more durable, reusable bag made from recycled plastic. Who would have thunk? Meanwhile, the debate has moved on. The next plastic nemesis that needs to go because it's ending up in the waterways is the plastic straw. I wonder if the paper counterpart will be investigated like the bags. The interesting thing is, this is another item banned by the UK first. It's interesting two separate Western cultures would have the same flagrant disregard for disposal of straws and plastic bags. I wonder who these people are that keep going to the local river or beach, evading all the parks and recreation offices so that they can throw in all the straws and bags they've been saving up for a laugh. Has anybody thought that a more common denominator of plastic in the seas might be all the cruise ships, or the container ships, or the tankers disposing of their rubbish? Out of sight, out of mind. The narrative seems to be single-use plastic items ending up in our oceans, but penalising the consumer does not seem to make any sense. A conspiracy thinker might try and work out who benefits and come up with everything from saving petrochemicals as they're purportedly running out, to just more profit-making for the corporations. The true questions for me, though, are, why are we, as the consumer, the ones to be held responsible? The corporations are the ones using massive amounts of plastic to package and indeed make their goods. How many plastic items do we buy and they break every day because of the cheap construction? How much plastic do we have to recycle on their behalf every day? How much tax do we pay to have their waste taken to recycling or sent overseas to be sorted? Why have the corporations not invested in biodegradables? And why must the consumer be the responsible party for them? I hear some say it's the consumer's choice. But when the consumer has no choice, how is that achieved? Sure, we can choose to be penalised or bring our own bags now, if that's a choice, but how do I choose the metal game controller, the biodegradable ink cartridge, the environmentally friendly Lego? It's time the blame of the governments and the environmentalists fall on those creating the problem in the first place. We will still be charged in the long run due to the costs of the charges trickling down, but the blame of the consumer for the choice and the waste of the corporations needs to stop. I, for one, am tired of the blame coming to rest on those that are innocent parties caught between media agendas and profiteering corporations.